Dr. Gerald Early of Washington University once said that the United States will be remembered for three things 2,000 years from now: the Constitution, jazz music, and baseball. Those are the three most beautiful things that our culture has ever created. Today, I will be focusing on baseball, and I will be showing you how baseball became America's pastime through the invention of the game, through its three eras of play, and by telling you some fun facts and stories about the game of baseball. First, let's start off with the invention of the game of baseball. The National Baseball Hall of Fame has stated that the first professional baseball games were played during a young nation's darkest days. And this is from their website, and this being, of course, obviously the Civil War. While it has since been debunked, many will still claim that Abner Doubleday, a Civil War hero for the Union, invented the game of baseball in Cooperstown, New York during the height of the Civil War. Now, the unfortunate truth is that no one actually knows or where to pinpoint when baseball was actually invented. But if you personally believe me, I would say it was Adam Sandler. Now, we're going to talk about the first main era of play in baseball, that being the dead ball era. Sean Lahman had described this era perfectly when he had said the games relied on contact hitters, bunting, and base stealing for its offense. And this was in his article about the history of baseball. Now, there were few players who were hitting home runs like we see today. And with fielders starting to wear gloves for the first time, and pitchers being able to doctor the ball in any way they want, and pitch the ball wherever they please, this created the very low-scoring run environment that this era would become famous for. Now, we're going to talk about the main era of baseball, the one that we are still currently in, that being the live ball era. And this is marked by an offensive explosion. Now, Babe Ruth is often given most credit for shifting baseball into the more offensive style type of game. And that credit is due because he was the first player to start hitting all home runs, getting all these runs across, and starting to favor the game towards hitters, as no one had hit 60 home runs or had 700 career home runs before Babe Ruth. But now I want to talk about one of the more overlooked reasons why the game changed. There was a player by the name of Ray Chapman who was a hitter for the Cleveland Indians, and during a game in the 1920s, he was killed. He was hit by a spitball in the head. And this started the crackdown on those types of pitches, the pitches that pitchers would doctor. And this started another offensive explosion that even doubled with Babe Ruth's great style of play. And this just gave no benefits to the pitchers. All the benefits were towards the hitters. Now, during the live ball era, too, is when baseball formed into the true fashion of the game we see today. The biggest of this being, like we all know, the color barrier being torn down with Jackie Robinson. And this started the integration of African Americans into the MLB, which gave us some of the best players baseball has ever seen. Now, during this time, too, there were changes to the strike zone, which we'll mainly cover right here in this season. Now, this season is an oddball. 1968, Major League Baseball wanted to level off a high-scoring run environment and give some benefit back to the pitchers. Well, like they say, don't fix it's not broken. Major League Baseball did this, and it completely backfired. All the pitchers became way too dominant, and league-wide hitting numbers drastically slumped down. Now, this year would become to be known as the year of the pitcher, as pitchers achieved marks that had not been seen since the dead ball era, and this was noted by Massarelli in his report of the year. Therefore, many Major League Baseball historians mark this as a dead ball era year, even though it occurred 48 years after the end of the official dead ball era. In the aftermath of this era, after the 1968 season ended, most of the rules that have been implemented were dropped, obviously, and this recreated another offensive explosion, and it keeps the offensive explosion going into the game we love today. And we are still technically living in the live ball era, as offensive hitting numbers are still surging every single year, with records being broken by hitters every single year, and with record lows for pitchers happening all these years. Now I'm going to talk about the most famous era in baseball history, the steroid era. Most individuals who follow baseball will tell you that the steroid era began around the late 1980s with players like Jose Canseco and Lenny Dykstra starting to get big muscles and clobber home runs left and right. And this started a trend of many players starting to use these PEDs to enhance their performance, hit the ball harder, and prevent injuries to themselves. And the most famous incident of the steroid era is the 1998 home run chase. Cubs and Cardinal star players Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire became infamous for using steroids. In 1998, however, they were recorded to have said saved the game of baseball. After the 1994 World Series was canceled due to a strike, many fans lost faith and trust in baseball. And even when it came back, fans still didn't trust in baseball. Thankfully, Sosa and McGwire made 1998 one of the most dramatic and must-watch seasons of baseball ever. During the 98 season, Sosa and McGwire were hitting home runs at improbable rates. and they've shattered the former record for home runs in a season. One of them had to hit 70 home runs, though. And that happened on September 27th of that year when Mark McGwire hit home runs 69 and 70 against the Expos, and that sent the baseball world into a frenzy. Although we now know that they were both cheating and using PEDs, what they had done at the time was the most important thing that had happened in baseball in a long time. Now, the downfall of the steroid era. In December of 2007, Senator George Mitchell released the infamous Mitchell Report. This report was a summary of the investigations into the use of anabolic steroids and human growth hormones in Major League Baseball. The report was actually released by Commissioner Bud Selig to the public, which caused an uproar by fans. The report was actually called in to meet with the U.S. Congress to help resolve the issue. Now, congressmen were angry at the players because of the images we're sending to those kids in high school, and this was from their actual hearing on the incident. And in the end, the bad publicity led to restrictions on PEDs, and the most exciting era of baseball had come to an end. Now, we're going to end with some fun facts and stories. Let's first talk about the potato incident. In a minor league baseball game in 1987, catcher Dave Brescian thought he'd have a little fun, and he substituted a peeled potato in for the baseball. He then threw the ball over the third baseman's head, had the real ball in his glove, and tagged the runner out when he came home. Dave was obviously asked to lead the team the very next day, and this was reported in the story about the incident in 2002. And now we're going to talk about Shazam. Shazam, I think, was originated from pitcher Ray Caldwell. So Ray Caldwell was struck by lightning, revived on the field, was cleared to stay in the game by doctors, and got the final out all within 30 minutes. And now we're going to talk about Rube Waddell. Rube was a very interesting man, to put it at least. He once left the game right in the middle of it to go fishing, and he also would quite often leave the pitcher's mound to go chase fire trucks, and this was reported by Cubs historian Banks in his report on Rube Waddell. And Rube would strike out the side, and he would then cartwheel off the field because he was so good, and finally, he asked to be paid half his salary in beer. He loved beer. Now, going back to what Dr. Jarrett Early had said about baseball being one of the things we'll be remembered for 2,000 years from now, I can definitely see that. After all, baseball is a beloved sport throughout the United States. That is why America's pastime in a summer would not be complete without it.